Hey everybody! In this tutorial we're going to talk about creating curved and straight paths with the pen tool. We'll take a look at how to add and remove anchor points. We'll look at the direct selection tool. I'll show you how to use the anchor point tool, and we'll also take a look at the importance of closed shapes. Alright, let's get started. Before I get started with the pen tool, I'm just going to open up my layers panel. To do that, we can come up to Window and hit Layers, or click F7. F7 brings it up. We haven't covered the layers panel yet, and for this assignment you're not going to have to make layers, but you might have to rearrange some of your paths, so I wanted to show you how to do that. Right here we have our trace layer, and we're going to be tracing over these objects. You can turn it off with this little eye here, and that'll toggle the visibility. This layer's locked so you can't move it, but if you were to unlock it, then that would let you move it around. Alright, I'm going to relock that. We want to click on this layer for drawing. Alright, you'll want to come over to your toolbar and select your pen tool. That's the top one out of these two similar icons. Click that or use the shortcut P. Now with the pen tool, we can make either straight lines for this table, or we can use it to make curved lines. I'm going to show you how to make the straight lines first. So with the pen tool, what you do is create an anchor point, and then you'll create another anchor point, and you'll get a path that is joined between those points. Okay, I'm just going to zoom in on the table before I start tracing it, just so it's a little bit easier to see. Remember, we could do that by coming down here to your magnifying glass tool and clicking on it. Or you can also zoom by holding Alt and using your scroll key on your mouse. Okay, so let's go back to our pen tool. And what you want to do to set your first anchor point is find a place to start and just click. There we have our anchor point, and you see it's creating a path already. We can come and select our second anchor point and click, and you see we have a path there, and it lets us continue on. You don't have to hold the button down, you can click and let go. Right now I'm not holding the button. I'll come over to this corner, click again over it until you see a little circle by your pen. Then you click, and that's going to close your shape. So right now we have a stroke on it that's black and it's filled with white. I'm just going to change that so it's easier to see. I'll come over to my selection tool, select the tabletop, and I'm actually just going to take the color off for now. And I'm also just going to change the stroke color so it's easier to see. Okay, so what we have here is a closed shape that is going to be the tabletop. Instead of just tracing around the table all as one piece like this, you want to think of it as separate pieces. I'm just going to delete this. So we have our tabletop here as a separate solid piece. This side piece will be its own separate shape. This piece will be its own separate shape, and so on. Alright, let's just go through and I'll finish up the table here. I'm just going to zoom in a little more. Now, I don't like to start where the original anchor was, because if you accidentally have this one selected when you want to start, it'll give you an option to delete your anchor points. We're going to go into that later. So make sure it's deselected, you have your pen tool, and I like to start just off the path. So we're going to fill this one now. Let's click that corner. We'll click here. We're going to click up to that one, over to that corner, and we're going to close it so we see that there's that little circle icon by our pen, and we can click and close that shape. So now we have two different shapes here. You can select that and move that around. I'm going to undo that with Control Z, and I'm going to move over here and start on this side. Let's start by putting an anchor point here, and we're going to move all the way over here, get an anchor point there, get an anchor point up here. Now I put it a little too high, but that's not a problem. Don't worry about that now. We can come back and fix that with our direct selection tool. So I'm going to come over here to this corner. I want to close my path by clicking on my first anchor point. You see the little circle is there, and then we click and close that. So now we have this anchor point here, which is a little too high. So what we want to do is use our direct selection tool. So unlike our selection tool, which is this one, which lets you select the entire object, this one lets you select components of the object. So this is your direct selection tool right here. You can get to it by using A. So this lets you click on a component of an object without selecting the entire object. We could just select this anchor here, click on it. It just lets you move that one without adjusting the entire shape. So we can move it down and into position. All right, let's keep tracing. we're going to go back to our pen tool using the shortcut P, and let's work on this side here. We'll set our first anchor point, come over, set a second one, come to here, we'll set another one, set our third one, close it. These overlaps here aren't going to matter because once we color it, it's going to be layered, so this will be layered under this piece. All right, we'll deselect that and we'll continue on. I'm going to select the pen tool again, come over to this free corner, set our first anchor point, come to the corner here, set another one, up here, over this way, and we're going to close it. So this one's a little crooked here. What I can do is come and select my direct selection tool. I'm going to zoom in on it. I'm going to click on it, and I can just move that 1 point. And I'll just zoom back out here. All right, let's continue with the legs of the table. So even though the leg is a solid leg, we'll treat these faces as separate pieces. So we're going to come down and click at the bottom, click another anchor point here, we'll click one there, come over to this side, put another anchor point, come down, and close it. All right, I'll just continue with the rest of these. Close that. We'll come to this side. I'm going to start an anchor point down here, come up to here, over, down to this corner, and close that one. Let's put another one here, up to the top, down to this corner, and we'll close it. I'll fix this one afterwards with my direct selection tool. All right, let's start on this side. We'll click there, put an anchor point in that corner, come up to here, and we'll close it. Do this last piece here, and close it. And let's just do this last leg here. And this one last side. All right, so that's the table. I'm just going to come and clean up a few of these little points. We'll start with this one. Make sure the anchor point's selected. Move it down. Zoom back out. This I'm not going to worry about since it will be covered when we color it. And we could come over to this one here. Click it and slide it over. All right, let's zoom back out. That's how you use the path tool for creating straight lines. I'm going to show you now how to make curved lines for something like this heart. All right, let's zoom in on the heart. Let's select our pen tool again. And for the table, we had a corner anchor path. So with that, you just click once, let go, and click again, and you get that hard corner. If you want a curved path, you're going to click and hold like so. We'll click, and then if you click and drag while holding the button down, you'll be able to curve your path, and you'll see that we get these two handles on either side, and those handles are going to let you come and adjust your path later. And then you can just keep on clicking, same way, and close up the path. All right, let's just delete this one out, and we'll try it for the heart. So we're going to make our first click here, and what you want to do with this is you have to think about where to set your paths. And so what I like to do is where there are big direction changes. So we're coming up the hill here, and then once we kind of hit the top here, that's where I would put an anchor point. So if we click and then drag while holding the button, you can curve your anchor point. And we'll let go, and we'll be able to add another point. So what we want to do is come down here, and we start to see the direction change around here. So let's put a point here, drag to match the heart, let go, we come around here, and we probably want to put one somewhere down in here. And don't worry, I'm going to show you how to add and remove anchor points later if you have too many or if you want some more. Click and drag. And right down here we have a bit of a dip, so I think we can put one here, drag to straighten that, and then let's come right to the bottom. And if we just click once, we'll get that corner anchor point at the bottom. Okay, let's come up to about here, click and drag, and we could try maybe somewhere in here. Click and drag, right about here I would say. Let's go another one at the top here, click, drag that path with the handles, and we can come down and close up. All right, so say we want to add some more anchor points or remove some. We could do that by using these tools here, the Add Anchor Point tool and the Delete Anchor Point tool. So if we don't want an anchor point, we'll take the delete one, and you can just hover over it and click, and it's going to remove that anchor point. To add it back in, let's go to our Anchor Point tool. We'll hover over the path wherever you want it and click. And that added a point there. So then what you can do is come and get your direct selection tool, select that anchor, and then we can drag it to where we want. We can also adjust the anchor points by adjusting the handles. So right now we can't see our anchor points unless we select everything. So you can also use your direct selection tool to highlight everything. And let's say we just want to adjust the handles. All right, another way you can add and delete anchor points is by using your regular pen tool. First, let's make sure we select our heart, and then we'll take our pen tool, and if you hover on a path with the heart selected, you'll see that it adds a little plus sign beside the pen icon. You can just click and it'll add one. I'm going to undo that with Control Z and show you that you can also delete them. If you hover over an existing anchor point with your pen tool selected, you'll see the little minus sign come up. So that lets you delete them without needing to come over here and select your Delete Anchor Point tool. So you can just click and it'll delete that one. Let's undo that. Okay, let's continue using our path tool on this apple. Now I explained that you only want to put points where needed. What you don't want to do is something like this, where you just click along, don't try to curve them at all, and just try to follow the shape like that. This is going to be really hard to work with later. What you want to do is just have the right amount of points, enough that you can make a nice smooth path without having unnecessary points. All right, we're just going to delete this one. And let's continue making our paths. All right, so let's go to about the top little dip. Give it a little bit of a curve. Come down to this end. Now we're going to follow the path here. Here's where the direction starts to change. So let's click there, drag that out a bit. We can come up here. I think we should put one about here. Drag that out. And let's get another one here. And we'll close it. All right, let's continue with the stem. Around that one, let's follow the path here and put one about there. We can come down to this edge here. And we want to put one probably about here. And then this one we can put right at the end and curve. Okay. Even though it doesn't come right through here in the drawing, you want to treat this as one full object. Remember, we need closed shapes. I'm going to show you at the end of this tutorial why we need closed shapes. Okay, let's start by clicking here. Come up to about here. We want to follow this curve down here, so maybe somewhere around there. And again, don't worry if you put them in the wrong place. We can always add and remove later and move them around with the direct selection tool. Let's try about there. And we'll put another one about here. Maybe one right there. Another one here. So we have a little bit of a funky path here, but we could fix that later. We'll come up here, curve that path. Let's try an anchor point there. Put another one maybe about here. Let's do one at the top of this little point. And we'll come down here and close it. And we'll just finish off by doing this little piece here. Come to the end, curve it. And again, we want to treat it like one full shape, even though it's not drawn there. Probably put one right at the top here. And then let's put another one here. So now what we have here is we have all curved anchor points, except this one I didn't drag, I just clicked at the end to close it. That gave us a hard corner anchor, like with the table. So if I just zoom in on that, you can see that that one is different than these curved ones. So what we want to do is convert this into a curved anchor point. And what we can do is come to our pen tool, we'll click and hold, and we'll see all the tools nested underneath it, and we're going to want our anchor point tool. So you want to click on this corner point, and then just drag, and it's going to bring out those handles. And if you want to convert a curved anchor point into a corner one, you just click on it, and that'll turn it into a corner point to get those handles back. Again, just click and drag. Sometimes this will happen. If you drag them the wrong direction, they're going to twist like that and kind of overlap each other. So you just want to make sure that they're not overlapped and you have them going in the right direction. All right, I'm just going to clean this one up a little bit by grabbing my direct selection tool. Let's move that over, maybe grab this handle here. You have them going in the right. Maybe we'll clean this up a little bit too. Sometimes if you ever have this problem where there's a handle, but not a second handle coming out the other side, you can use your anchor point tool and click, and it'll just bring out both handles. The path tool takes a little while to delete the whole thing and start over. Also, don't be afraid to add and remove anchor points after you've already made your path to adjust it. I just want to show you why it's so important to close your paths. If we're making a shape and we don't close it all the way, if you're in the middle of creating a path and want to stop, you can just come up and select a different tool while your path is open. All right, so here we have a path that isn't closed, and if we went to color it, it's going to color it, but we're going to have an issue where it doesn't close. See right there. If you have a shape that isn't closed, that you want to close without deleting and starting over, make sure you select your path, take your pen tool, and click on one of the open points. Once you click on that, it's going to let you continue on with it, and then you can just come and click that one. And if you don't like the way this looks, we can hover over that anchor point and delete it. Okay, let's delete this. Another thing you don't want to use is your line tool for making shapes. So let's say we're making our tabletop here, and we're just going to draw it out with these lines. It looks like a closed shape, but it's actually 4 separate shapes that just have a stroke on them and not a fill. And if we select the whole thing to give a color to, it's not going to let you color it because actually these aren't connected at all. So always be sure to close up your shapes. Okay, I had mentioned that I'm not too worried about this one because when we color it, it'll be underneath this piece and we won't see that. I just want to show you what I mean. There's a tutorial next week that will cover color in more detail, but you will be coloring this assignment this week, so I just want to quickly go over it. Okay, let's zoom in on this one. And so we want to add some color to this one. We'll select our color swatch down here. Let's give it a brown table color. And then let's color this one. We'll give it a brown color as well. So right now this one is overlapping it, and we don't want that. So I'm going to close this. What you want to do is come over to your layers panel, and there's also going to be a video later on the layers panel that goes into it in way more detail, but for this assignment we'll just briefly cover it. So we want to click on this little arrow here, and that will expand this layer. These are your layers. You have 2 layers here, and then in this layer is where all of these paths are. So right here we can see all of the paths that we've made, and if we click on one, it gets highlighted here. So what you want to do is take that, it right now is over top this path, so we want to take it and just drop it below. And we can do that for this one as well. Drop it below. Let's put some color on this one maybe. And it's behind there. I'll also cover this a little more in the homework video for this week. Alright, that'll wrap up this tutorial on the pen tool.